All right, so today we are going to cover septic systems. So we're going to talk about septic layouts, percolation rates, and septic asbuilts. So what is the difference between those three things and how do they actually pertain to purchasing land, or if you're actually going through the build process, what you need to know about them and how that process works. So the first thing is, if you're looking for a piece of land and there's nothing ever been built on it, is you want to look at see if there's been a perc test done, so a percolation test. And what a percolation test is that's essentially how fast does the water soak into the ground. So we're going to look at the percolation rate. They measure it in inches per minute that it goes down. So the septic engineer will actually drill a hole and they will put water in that hole and see how and measure the amount of time it takes for that to actually recede and soak into the ground. So, and that's your percolation rate. So the faster it goes into the ground, the better the percolation rate, the less amount of minutes it takes to go in to the ground, which means the septic system that you put in does not have to be as large, because the smaller system will do a same amount of work as a larger system would with a higher perc rate. If you had a higher perc rate, to have a larger system. So that's how percolation rate works. That's the basics of it. Now there's different types of system. You can put a standard system in, you can put a seepage pit system in, and there's also an alternative septic system, which you would use in the event of potentially having high groundwater. So let's say you do a perc test and you find that there's groundwater that's not very far below the surface, and you have to have a separation between the groundwater and the effluent that's coming out of your system. So in that case, you would want to use an alternative system, and that can affect the cost because you're going to spend a lot more on that alternative system than you would on a standard septic system. So standard system, you can expect to spend somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000, and then on an alternative system, you can expect to spend somewhere between $30,000 to $45,000. Just depends on the amount of square footage that you're required to have for that alternative system. So that's the percolation rate. That's what you can expect, or why you need to know what it is. So once we know that, then we can go ahead and draw up what we would call a septic layout. Now this would be on a piece of property that has not, again, been developed. It's never had anything on it before. A septic layout is essentially taking the perc rate that we found. And actually, one thing I should step back on is the perc rate. Let's say you have a piece of property that it's all subdivided, it's a legal lot, and there's lots around it that have been built on. Now, that particular property that you're buying may have not had a percolation test done on it, but with the County of San Diego, what you are able to do a lot of times is you can contact them during the septic layout process and say, hey, look, these properties around me have had perc tests done on them. They're similar soils, and they will look at what the perc rates were on those properties around you, the adjoining properties, and they'll take the worst case perc rate. So say one was 40 and one was 20, they're going to take the 40, and then they would allow you to move forward, typically, with a system designed for a perc rate at say 40, and then you would not have to pay to have a percolation test done. So percolation test may cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500. So it may or may not make sense depending on the system that you're putting in and what the cost is going to be to do it. But that is one way to get around not having to do a perc test. So back to the septic layout. So the process of the septic layout can occur while you actually have your plans for your home at the County of San Diego getting processed, or City of San Diego, wherever you're at. And you can do those simultaneously. However, you can't get a permit issued to build a home without that septic layout actually approved first. And then you'll pull that permit with the septic at the same time. So septic layout is essential to get done, so you can actually start that process before you started to get a building permit, or going through the building permit process. So the septic layout essentially goes, okay, my house, you're going to draw up a site plan. It's on a lot of times 11 by 17 sheet that you'll draw up, and you're going to show the property boundaries. and then you will then you're going to show the location of the home, any grading areas that are being graded, because that septic system cannot go in an area that has been impacted by grading. They want that in the natural soils. So once we have the house location, the pad location where the grading is being done, then we're going to actually show where the primary septic system is going to go, and then we'll show the reserve area. So standard systems, you're going to be required to show 100% reserve area, and the same for alternative systems. However, the standard systems take a lot more space than an alternative system typically. So all of that will go on that septic layout. You'll show any easements or anything else that would impact where a potential septic system could go. And you're going to get that submitted to the Department of Environmental Health. And then once that's done, they will say, hey, yeah, I like it. Or they'll tell you what maybe some changes need to be done on the system, make some recommendations, you make those changes, and then they'll approve that septic layout. Now, one thing that affects the size of the system that you're actually getting approved is the amount of bedrooms. So it's not bathrooms, it's not the size of the home, it's the amount of bedrooms. So if I have a 3-bedroom home, I'm going to have a certain amount of, or certain size septic system, so a certain amount of leach line, footage of leach lines. If I go to a 4-bedroom, I would have to have a certain amount more leach lines to that 4-bedroom. Now, a lot of times, if you're approved for a 3-bedroom, they're going to let you go. They'll just tell you, yeah, well, you're a 3-bedroom at this perk rate, add 100 lineal feet of leach lines, or whatever that calculation is to go to that 4-bedroom. Even though it was tested for a 3-bedroom initially, you can no problem do a 4. But that doesn't always occur if you're limited on space. So if you run out of space for your primary, and then for your primary septic system, and also your reserve, then you may not be able to do that. So you could be limited at even a 2 or 3-bedroom, or some of these ADUs we're doing are limited to 1-bedroom because there's just not enough space on the lot to put that extra bedroom in there and put that extra leach field that's required for that extra bedroom. So, okay, so that's septic layout. Now let's talk about what is a septic as-built. So a septic as-built is different. So an as-built is if you've actually had a system put in on this property. The septic contractor, they going back to the layout, you have the plan for the layout, basic layout. Now, once that is been approved, you're going to start the work. The system gets installed, and the septic contractor, the general contractor, is responsible for drawing up a septic as-built, and that's what is actually installed. So a lot of times it's exactly as a septic layout is, but sometimes you'll hit rock, or sometimes there's something unforeseen where you have to move the system, or maybe one line is longer than it was shown on the layout. So you'll actually draw the exact lineal footage of the leach field on each individual line and put that on this as-built. So it's as it was built, that's what an as-built is. The layout is prior to the work actually being done. So sometimes you'll have a property where there was a home there, it was either torn down or burned down, whatever the case may be. You can, when you're buying that land and you know that there was a property or a home on that property prior, you can pull up that septic as-built in the county records, and you can see what's actually installed, and then they'll have locations because you're required to put dimensions on there to show where it was located on the property, which helps the future owner of that property to actually locate that if need be. So it should show where the septic tank is at. Tight line should show exactly where all of your leach field is. So it's not always as it was put in, how it's drawn, especially as you get older with older properties, but it does give you a starting point on where to find that. So, all right, so that is septic systems, covering layouts, covering perk test, and covering what a septic as-built is. So if you have more questions, you can visit our website at tfgonline.com. You can download a ton of information on buying land, building custom homes, remodeling homes, and building ADUs. So thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day.